Hello! It's time for more Hobbits. Are you ready for Mirkwood? Let's get started. Chapter 8 Flies and Spiders. They walked in a single file. The entrance to the path was like a sort of arch leading into a gloomy tunnel made by two great trees that leant together, too old and strangled with ivy and hung with lichen to bear more than a few blackened leaves. The path itself was narrow and wound in and out among the trunks. Soon the light at the gate was like a little bright hole far behind, and the quiet so deep that their feet seemed to thump along, while all the trees leaned over them and listened. As their eyes became used to the dimness, they could see a little way to either side in a sort of darkened green glimmer, occasionally a slender beam of sun that had the luck to slip through some opening in the leaves far above, and still more luck not to be caught in the tangled boughs and matted twigs beneath, stabbed down thin and bright before them. But this was seldom, and soon it ceased altogether. There were black squirrels in the wood. As Bilbo's sharp, inquisitive eyes got used to seeing things, he could catch glimpses of them, whisking off the path and scuttling behind tree trunks. There were queer noises, too, grunts, scufflings, and hurryings in the underground, and among the leaves that lay piled endlessly thick in places on the forest floor. But what made the noises he could not see. The nastiest things were the cobwebs, dark, dense cobwebs with threads extraordinarily thick, often stretched from tree to tree or tangled in the lower branches on either side of them. There were none stretched across the path, but whether from some magic to keep it clear or for what other reason, they could not guess. It was not long before they grew to hate the forest, and heartily as they had hated the tunnels of the goblins, and it seemed to offer even less hope of any ever ending. But they had to go on, long after they were sick for a sight of the sun and the sky, and longed for the feel of wind on their faces. There was no movement of air down under the forest roof, and it was everlastingly still and dark and stuffy. Even the dwarfs felt it, who were used to tunneling all their lives, at times for long whiles, without the light of the sun. But the hobbit, who liked holes to make a house in, but not to spend a summer day in, felt like he was being slowly suffocated. The nights were the worst. They became pitch dark, not what you call pitch dark, but really dark, so black that you could really see nothing. Bilbo tried flapping his hand in front of his nose. He could not see it at all. Well, perhaps it is not true to say they could see nothing. They could see eyes. They slept all closely huddled together and took it in turns to watch. And when it was Bilbo's turn, he would see gleams in the darkness round him. Sometimes pairs of yellow or red or green eyes would stare at him from a little distance, and then slowly fade and disappear, slowly shine out again in another place. And sometimes they would gleam down from the branches just above him, and that was the most terrifying. But the eyes that he liked the least were horrible, pale, bulbous sort of eyes. Insect eyes, he thought, not animal eyes, only much too big. Although it was not yet very cold, they tried lighting watchfires at night, but they soon gave up. It seemed to bring hundreds and hundreds of eyes all around them, though the creatures, whatever they were careful never to let their bodies show in the little flicker of the flames. Worse still, it brought thousands of dark gray and black moths, sometimes nearly as big as your hand, flapping and whirring round their ears. They could not stand that, nor the huge bats, black as a top hat, either. So they gave up fires, and they sat at night and dozed in the enormous, uncanny darkness. All this went on for what seemed for the hobbit to be ages upon ages, and he was always hungry, for they were extremely careful with their provisions. Even so, as days followed days, still the forest seemed just the same, and they began to get anxious. The food would not last forever. It was, in fact, already beginning to get low. They tried shooting at the squirrels, and they wasted many arrows before they managed to bring down one on the path. But when they roasted it, it proved horrible to taste, and they shot no more squirrels. They were thirsty too, for they had none too much water, and all that time they'd neither spring nor stream. That was their state one day when they found their path blocked by running water. It flowed fast and strong, but not very wide, right across the way, and it was black, or looked it in the gloom. It was well that Bjorn had warned them against it, or they would have drunk from it, whatever its color, and filled their emptied skins at its bank. As it was, they only thought of how crossing it without wetting themselves with the water. There had been a bridge of wood across, but it had rotted and fallen, leaving only the broken posts near the bank. Bilbo, kneeling on the brink and peering forward, cried, "There is a boat against the far bank. Now, why couldn't it have been this side?" "How far do you think it is?" said Thorin, for now he knew that Bilbo had the sharpest eye among them. "Not at all far. I shouldn't think above 12 yards.
12 yards? I should have thought it was 30 at least, but my eyes don't see as well as they did 100 years ago. Still, 12 yards is as good as a mile. We can't jump it, and we daren't try to wade or swim."
"Can any of you throw a rope?"
"What good is that? The boat's sure to be tied up, even if we could hook it, which I doubt."
"I don't believe it is tied," said Bilbo, "though of course I can't be sure in this light. But it looks to me as if it were just drawn up on the bank, which is low just there where the path goes into the water."
"Dori is the strongest, but Fili is the youngest and still has the best sight," said Thorin. "Come here, Fili, and see if you can see the boat Mr. Baggin is talking about."
Fili thought he could, so when he had started a long while to get an idea of the directions, the others brought him a rope. They had several with them, and on the end, the longest, they fastened one of large iron hooks they used for catching their packs to the straps about their shoulders. Fili took this in hand and balanced it for a moment, and then flung it across the stream. Splash! It fell in the water. "Not far enough," said Bilbo, who was peering forward. "A couple of feet, and you would have dropped it into the boat. Try again. I don't suppose the magic is strong enough to hurt you if you just touch a bit of wet rope." Fili picked up the hook, and he ran to draw it back rather doubtfully all the same. This time he threw it with greater strength. "Steady," said Bilbo. "You have thrown it right into the wood on the other side. Draw it back gently." Fili hauled the rope back slowly. After a while, Bilbo said, "Carefully! It's lying on the boat. Let's hope the hook will catch." It did. The rope went taut, and Fili pulled in vain. Kili came to help, then Owen and Glóin. They tugged, and suddenly they all fell over on their backs. Bilbo was on the lookout, however, and caught the rope with a piece of stick, fending off the little black boat as it came rushing down the stream. "Help!" he shouted, and Balin came just in time to seize the boat before it floated off down the currents. "It was tied, after all," he said, looking at the snapped painter that was still dangling from it. "That was a good pull, my lads, and a good job our rope was the stronger." "Who'll cross first?" asked Bilbo.
"I shall," said Thorin, "and you will come with me, and Fili and Balin. That's as many as the boat will hold at a time, and after that Kili and Owen and Glóin and Dori, next Ori and Nori and Bifur and Bofur, and last Dwalin and Bomba." "I'm always last, and I don't like it," said Bomba. "It's somebody else's turn today." "You should not be so fat. As you are, you must be with the last and the lightest load. Don't start grumbling against orders, or something bad will happen to you." "There aren't any oars. How are you going to push the boat back to the far bank?" asked the Hobbit. "Give me another length of rope and another hook," said Fili, and when they had got it ready, he cast it into the darkness ahead as high as he could throw it. Since it did not fall down again, they saw that it must have stuck in the branches. "Get it now," said Fili, "and one of you haul on the rope, and when it is stuck in the tree on the other side, one of the others must keep hold of the hook who used it first, and when we are safe to the other side, we can hook onto it, and you can draw the boat back." In this way, they were all soon on the far bank, safe across the enchanted stream. Dwalin had just scrambled out of the coiled rope on his arm, and Bombur, still grumbling, was getting ready to follow when something bad did happen. There was a flying sound of hooves on the path ahead. Out of the gloom suddenly came a shape of a flying deer. It charged into the dwarves and bowled them over, then gathered itself for a leap. High it sprang and cleared the water with a mighty jump. But it did not reach the other side in safety. Thorin was the only one who still had his feet and his wits. As soon as it had landed, he bent his bow and fitted an arrow in case any hidden guardian of the boat appeared.
Now he sent a swift and sure shot into the leaping beast. As it reached the further bank, it stumbled. The shadows swallowed it up. They heard the sound of hooves quickly falter and then go still. Before they could shout in praise of the shot, however, there was a dreadful wail from Bilbo, put all thoughts of venison out of their minds. "Bumber has fallen in! Bumber is drowning!" he cried. It was only too true. Bumber had only 1 foot on the land when the heart had borne down on him and sprang over him. He had stumbled, thrusting the boat away from the bank, and toppled back into the dark, his hands slipping off the slimy roots at the edge, while the boat span slowly off and disappeared. They could still see his hood above the water when they ran to the bank. Quickly they flung a rope with a hook towards him. His hand caught it, and they pulled him to shore. He was drenched from hair to boots, of course, but that was not the worst. When they laid him on the bank, he was already fast asleep, with one hand clutching the rope so tight they could not get it from his grasp. And fast asleep he remained, in spite of all they could do. And if you want to see what happens with Bombur, we'll cover that next time. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.